Hey, Garrett and Sabrina. Thanks for joining us on this video.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, can you guys tell us a bit about your podcast?
Sure. So we run I Know Dino. It's the world's largest dinosaur podcast. And every week we cover the new dinosaur discoveries that have come out, as well as we discuss dinosaurs with dinosaur enthusiasts and dinosaur experts like paleontologists. And we have a dinosaur of the day that Sabrina covers.
Mm-hmm. Which are usually requests from our listeners.
And you guys are connected somehow?
And we're married. We had a dinosaur-themed wedding, and then we sort of ran with that and turned our passion into a podcast.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. We got married at the Santa Barbara Zoo, because we met in Santa Barbara. And the year we got married was the first year that they had Duncan the dinosaur. And it's a man in a T-Rex costume with an animatronic head who is meant to be there to teach children. But they knew we loved dinosaurs so much, and we were doing other dinosaur decorations, like the centerpieces and cake topper and things like that. And so they offered to have Duncan at our wedding, and we said, of course. And Duncan was great. I'd say all the adults loved Duncan, but all the children, maybe 10 and under, cried when they saw Duncan.
Scary. It's scary seeing a full-size dinosaur coming at you.
The face is pretty realistic. It turns out they had to do some work on Duncan to make him look like he was smiling more because he was too scary.
Less terrifying.
So even though on that particular dinosaur costume, the legs are sticking out, kids just sort of see right past that, you think?
They just see the face, I think.
Well, when Duncan is interacting with you, there's a camera in his face, so the puppeteer is pretty far away. Like the legs are 5-6 feet away. It's this big teethy mouth that's right at you. So I think that's why it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So they kind of block your view from seeing the legs and other stuff happening because you just have this thing up in your face.
Yep.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
How did you two first meet?
In a very Santa Barbara way. It was at a party on DP. And if you went to Santa Barbara, you know what that stands for. Del Playa.
Del Playa in Isla Vista.
Yep, IV. And I was living on DP, and that's kind of the unwritten rule is you have a lot of parties at your apartment. And so we had a highlighter party where we changed all of the lights to black light bulbs and then told everyone, wear a white T-shirt, and then we passed out highlighters, and everybody took turns drawing on each other.
So when I met Sabrina, she had highlighter glasses drawn on her face.
Yep.
And I don't know what kind of craziness on her shirt and what kind of craziness was on my shirt. But
I don't remember. It actually had nothing to do with dinosaurs. I don't think we talked about dinosaurs until maybe 3 years into dating.
yeah, we had moved
Get out of
to
here.
yeah, we moved to New Jersey she was going to NYU and I was working in New Jersey. I was doing chemical engineering stuff, and we went to the American Museum of Natural History because of course you do if you live within, I don't know, a 4-hour drive of it.
Yeah, anytime anyone visited us, we'd be like, let's take you to the Museum of Natural History.
Yeah, and I think the first time we went there, we had a conversation that was something like, I love dinosaurs. And the other person was like, I love dinosaurs too. Really? How has this not come up?
3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
took a while.
So how did it transition from that to how many episodes have you guys done now? 300?
Almost 300, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say it started with, we both loved dinosaurs as kids. Land Before Time, Jurassic Park, all of that. And then just sort of, I don't know, forgot about it for a little while, or maybe we're embarrassed as teenagers or something like that. And then, but being able to rekindle this fascination and passion, we just decided to go for it. And so Garrett we started with a website where Garrett wanted to map out all of the natural history, specifically dinosaur-focused museums around the world. And then with the goal of, well, maybe we'll get to most of them, or at least some of them.
Yeah, some of them were kind of hard to find. So, and we love dinosaur museums. I mean, that was the thing.
Yeah.
We connected over the American Museum of Natural History. And yeah, so we had that website. And that's when the name I Know Dino came up because that domain was available and related to dinosaurs.
Yep.
Yeah, and then how many years later?
Then we got married a year later, and then a few months after getting married, so January 2015, we started the podcast because at the time, Garrett had recently gotten into podcasts, so he was really familiar with the format, and that's when we realized that there was this gap. There were some really great paleontology podcasts out there, but nothing that focused specifically on dinosaurs.
Nobody was keeping up with all the discoveries that I wanted to hear about. So.
Right. Well, we learned that there was something new being discovered and written about almost every week, which was amazing.
It's a lot. In
Yeah.
the beginning, we used to worry, what if there isn't enough to talk about in this episode? And now that is not a concern. It's always like, what do we cut? We don't have time for every story. What do we focus on?
That sounds familiar. So 300 episodes, that's roughly 300 hours of content that you put out?
Yeah, that's the right ballpark.
Wow.
There are some episodes like Sabrina Ricci's Hardcore Bone Wars, which is 2 hours and 38 minutes, I think. I think that's our longest episode.
Some topics are too big to cover in just 1 hour, it turns out.
Yeah. And so roughly 300 people you've interviewed over that span of time?
I think we've only interviewed about 100.
Maybe 150 now.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Okay.
it was groups of people. We don't interview every week.
True. If you include groups of people, we could be near 300 because sometimes we'll interview like 8 people at a time.
Oh, wow. What is that like?
That was the team behind the game Saurian.
Yeah.
So they all, there's like the game developers of all types. There's the music people, the people making the assets, and the people designing the animations and all that. And they all wanted to be in on it. So
Yeah.
it's a big group.
Have you guys had like a lot of like fan response, or sort of what has that interaction been like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been very good.
It's one of the things that I think keeps us going because this, from doing the documentary, it's a lot of work. And sometimes you just feel like, oh, this week there's so much going on, I just want to take a break. And then we'll get a nice note or email or sometimes video messages even from people who are like, wow, we really love listening to your podcast, or you helped me get through my day, or something like that. In one case, actually, somebody said they changed their major to paleontology after listening to us for a few episodes, which was amazing to hear.
Yeah. And we've also had a lot of like user created stuff. So like this shirt I'm wearing was one of our listeners created.
Who we interviewed.
Yeah. They're a paleo artist named the Doodling Dino is their hashtag or their, what is it?
Their handle.
And so they made this shirt and gave it to us, let us give it out to everybody. So
Allosaurus.
It's really flattering, when you see people embrace the work that you're doing and be excited about it. And so, has anybody ever interviewed you?
yeah, we've done a couple crossover is the main way it happens. So we
Yeah.
did an interview for Jurassic Park podcast. We've done a couple going that way because obviously there's a lot of crossover between Jurassic Park and, general dinosaur science.
A few paleontology themed podcasts too.
Okay. Yeah,
But
cool.
it does feel it's very different to be on the other side.
It's a lot easier. I like it.
Oh, really? I find the other way easier.
I do too. Yeah, I would rather be standing behind a camera and filming and letting James ask all the questions he's ever wanted to ask these paleontologists.
I can
is
talk
weird.
nonstop. It's not a problem for me to just answer questions indefinitely.
All right, we'll give him some more.
So can you give us sort of a highlight reel, out of all of the guests that you've interviewed, of like a couple of your favorite ones over the years?
So for me, it's always the most recent ones are my favorite because it kind of builds over time. It's like science, right? So over time you learn, oh, there's this theory out there. Like one of my favorites was with Alvarezsaurids and their little crazy short arms with the claws on them. And like, what are they using those claws for? So I used to ask different paleontologists the answer to this until you eventually get to a sort of consensus. Because one of my favorite theories was, well, they're using these claws to chest bump into eggs and break them open, and then they're like egg specialists. And that was it. There was a whole paper that was a lot about that. So I would ask different people who've worked with Alvarezsaurids, what do you think of this hypothesis? And most of them would answer, I'm pretty sure that they're for breaking open termite mounds. So now that's what we go with. Or like with Spinosaurus too. That's changed a lot over time. T-Rex, you hear the differences between feathers and lips and all that stuff. So it builds. So my favorite is usually the most recent one we've done and at this point it's Spinosaurus. That's the most recent.
There's also
That's fair.
been people who are just really excited to be talking about their work.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's contagious. It fires us up too.
Especially when it's an oddball topic, or like something you don't hear about that much in the mainstream, like Karen Chin with coprolite. It's like not a lot of people talking about fossilized dinosaur poop, but there's so much information there. So when you get that first person who's like a real expert on it explaining it to you, that's awesome.
How about you, Sabrina? Do you have any favorite episodes, favorite guests?
Well, I have a favorite dinosaur, which is Brontosaurus, and that got brought back in 2015. And we interviewed Emmanuel Schopp for the episode. It was episode 100, and it worked out really well. And now every time I see him at SVP, I tell him, "Oh, thank you so much. You're my favorite for bringing Brontosaurus back."
Awesome.
Since you mentioned Brontosaurus, I should give a shout out to Victoria Arbor because she is the ankylosaur expert and named Zool along with David Evans and lots of other really amazing ankylosaurs and has done tons of great work on them. So since ankylosaurs are my favorite group of dinosaurs, yeah, every time we talk to Victoria Arbor, I'm pretty pumped.
When I saw the Nodosaur at the Tyrrell, wow, like that changed. That's my favorite fossil, my favorite dinosaur at this point, like that's really something special. So it's neat. You're just talking to different people and everybody's got a different, favorite for one reason or another.
Yeah, that Nodosaur is amazing. My favorite was Ankylosaurus for the longest time because it was like the biggest ankylosaur. It was the latest in the Cretaceous, so it had a big tail club and all the body armor, more so than some of the earlier ankylosaurs. But then they found Zool and that Nodosaur you're talking about, which is Borealopelta, and I can't choose a favorite really anymore. It's just ankylosaurs.
Do you think it's because you can, see it, and more, it's not just bones, but it actually looks like a real dinosaur is laying there, sleeping.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's my profile picture several places. Is like me sitting in front of it. I like squeezed over by. I was like, Sabrina, take a picture of me like it's a celebrity. I need a picture with the Nodosaur.
It's mainly, I think, the tail and the clubs that you like.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a Nodosaur, so it doesn't have one, and that part's
true.
not even preserved. But the armor is still amazing, and it's all in situ there, so you can see where all the bony plates were. You can even see the little vertebra sticking up through the back of it, and it's
gut contents too.
Yeah,
right?
they just published the gut contents of it, so they can tell it was eating in what was probably a recently burned down forest, and then ferns had popped up, and it swooped in to eat all the ferns.
A lot of bits of charcoal. Yeah, I love learning about gut contents.
The stories that the fossils tell are probably my favorite thing overall, which is just amazing. The things you can learn about these dinosaurs just from one snapshot of mostly bone.
Yeah.
For
me
sure,
too, it's the impact that dinosaurs have. One of our earliest interviews was with Anthony J. Martin, and he had written a book recently at the time called Dinosaurs Without Bones, and there's a chapter in there about how, I want to say it was in Australia, sauropods, they migrated, and they're so big that they ended up shaping the landscape, and you can still see how they shaped the landscape today.
Like just by walking like glaciers.
Yeah.
Gouging out canyons.
Yeah, that's some weird. This all the trace evidence stuff is like pretty crazy. I mean, anytime you see one of those big trackways or something, we've been able to go to a couple recently, and just like there's such an immediacy to it, of just like this is an individual more, where you can see like, here's a step and here's like another step, and this one they kind of slipped, and like this one their foot got a little more stuck in the mud or whatever. Looks like it just happened.
Yeah, it does. It's hard to believe, really, how old it is when you see it.
And what you could tell from it too, like, there's a piece of Tyrannosaur marks that you can tell that it did some kind of mating dance or something.
Oh yeah, the lecking scrape marks.
Yeah. And then they've built exhibits around this where you can dance alongside an animated T-Rex or something and see who does it better.
There's no shortage of interest in dinosaurs. I mean, that's that's what we keep discovering. And as you said, 300 episodes, there's no shortage of information about dinosaurs. And I mean, what does the future look like? Where do you guys want to take this podcast? You want to just keep doing it the way it is, or do you have some other plans in mind?
We've written some books. I have a background in book publishing, and I very much like writing. So being able to write stories around these things, it's been great.
I like doing video game streams because I like playing video games, and why not stream it? But yeah, the podcast keeps us so busy that sometimes it's hard to think of what else.
No, I'd
we
say
could be doing.
we're open to whatever. Like, it's opened up a lot of really cool opportunities. Like, we've gone into some middle school classrooms and answered questions. We're going to be a guest speaker at a college, actually, in about a month. And last year, because we go to SVP every year, we get to travel and meet a ton of people. And last year, it worked out that we got to go to Brisbane for SVP in Australia. And then we spent a month basically road tripping across the outback. And we got to visit a bunch of the museums that are in some of the most remote areas I've ever been. Like, one town is a town of 30 people. And they have an incredible museum because there's all these fossils that are, a lot of interest is growing in these areas, and they're getting a lot of volunteers, and they're finding so much. And they're actually, I think 3 of the museums we visited are all on track to build these new incredible spaces because
They're all expanding.
They're all expanding because they have so much to show.
Yeah, and so much more they need to store too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's our dream is to one day open a dinosaur museum, because there isn't really one in the Bay Area. That would be the ultimate thing. But that is a lofty dream at this point.
We just need a nice big building to put some of that UCMP stuff in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
It would look so nice.
Every time I read a paper and it's like this fossil and it has the UCMP number to go with it, I think, like, how come I can't see this? Why is it hiding in a collection? This is such an important
It's
and
in
awesome
there.
thing.
Just for people who don't know what UCMP is, James, will you give a quick little
Oh,
description, and then also tell them about Campanile Tower? I'm not sure if they know about that. That's
Okay.
a really funny story.
So the UCMP is the University of California Museum of Paleontology that is UC Berkeley's museum, and was essentially the California Museum of Paleontology for a couple decades, I think. Now I think it and LA are the major ones, and there's a bunch more that have popped up over the years, like San Diego and Riverside and all that. At the UCMP, there is a little display component. There's like 2 floors and a T-Rex and a Pteranodon, but other than that, there's just this like endless research hole of fossils and things that have been there. I think they have a couple. I think they're like just over 1 million or something like that.
Wow.
With the amount of pieces they have there, just between all of the microfossils and mammal fossils and things, including in the big clock tower in the middle of campus. There's a couple of floors worth of early La Brea tar pits fossils that have been just sort of shoved in there from when they were originally taking stuff out in like the 1910s, and from about 1910 to like 1930-ish, whenever the LA museum opened, they were just like, send it up there, and put it. We'll figure out what to do with it later. And then they didn't have enough collection space in the Life Sciences building, so now a lot of it's up in this tower. And
Isn't that bizarre? That the tower at Berkeley is basically a storage facility.
Wow. I had
Oh,
no
that's
For
idea.
fossils? I know. I don't see it the same way every time I see it now. And we were on campus not too long ago, and we walked up to it because everything looks, small from a distance. But this thing is huge. It's like 50 feet by 50 feet or something. And then how tall?
I don't know if it's 50 feet, because it's 300 feet. So
Tall?
So I don't think it's
okay,
50
maybe not
feet.
50, but still 300-foot tall, like, storage facility. And someone was telling us, like, it remembers riding up the elevator and seeing like suits of armor and all kinds of different things kind of positioned near these windows, and just the thought of it being full of fossils is really funny.
Yeah.
That's really cool. We've been to the top of that tower on Cal Day, but I don't remember seeing all the stuff. I didn't know I was
didn't know that
screaming
was in
by all
there?
the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Next cow
Yeah, I'll
day.
send you. They made a video a couple years ago of like, hey, did you know there's a bunch of stuff in here? We're working on it, and you can see like, especially after, because I talked to a couple of the faculty about it. It's like such a bench project right now to try and process that stuff.
I'm sure.
Because it's like, I mean, it is just a greater general point, but there's just like, there's a lot of fossils in the world, and a lot of them are very unprocessed, you know, to the point where it's like, here, yes, I have a hunk. Beyond that, I need to clean it to figure out the rest, but, you know, here is this chunk.
Right,
So.
right.
Sometimes this stuff, the really old stuff, is missing context, and you know, it's only as good as whoever pulled it out and whatever they wrote down, and so it's like a grab bag. You just don't know what's in those jackets.
Oh, yeah. Some of those excavation stories are crazy, too.
Yeah. Or the stories about this has been sitting on a shelf for 120 years.
Yeah.
Somebody decided to open it and they found a new dinosaur inside, which actually happens all the time.
Pegamastix was the weirdest one for that for me. It was just like this wacko heterodontosaurid, I think, from Africa, and the whole thing was just like, this guy opened a box one day that had been like for 100 years just sitting somewhere, and was like, wait a minute, this looks different, and that's the paper. Like, there you go, new dinosaur, bam. It's just a very interesting process.
As we kind of wrap up your portion of this podcast, you know, we always like to go out and asking people, like, why dinosaurs? Why do you like them? Why do you think people like them? Why do you have so many listeners? Like, what is it about dinosaurs?
It's a good question. I think, well, dinosaurs, they lived so long. You've probably talked to people and heard, like, one of my favorite fun facts I like to tell people who aren't necessarily as familiar with dinosaurs is the time between when Stegosaurus and T-Rex lived is actually longer than the time between T-Rex and us. And during that time, they had a lot of time to turn into such weird animals. Like you were saying, Mononychus, any kind of Therizinosaur is just amazingly strange. The fact that sauropods could get so giant and still be able to walk on land and just spend all day eating, and the different feeding strategies, it's amazing. And so I think it's kind of like there's a dinosaur for everyone, and different shapes, sizes, how it lived, behaved, all that stuff. We see a lot of stories of dinosaurs bringing communities together in different ways, whether it's like somebody made a dinosaur statue in a town and some bad weather kind of hurt it, and then there was a town recently, actually, they spent an entire day to fix this dinosaur that somebody had installed as a prank like 10 years ago. Or in Australia, actually, with the droughts and everything, they had a lot of dinosaurs, and being able to prepare the fossils at some of the museums we talked about gave people work to do, and were able to build these relationships while also learning about these amazing creatures.
What about you, Garrett?
Well, as Sabrina was saying that, I was reminded that, you know, the word dinosaur means like terrific lizard, and terrific in like an awe-inspiring way. And yeah, that's the main thing, is that they're just such amazing creatures. But on top of that, really, when you're talking about animals in general and what animals exist and that are impressive and everything, usually people are excited about megafauna. You like the really big animals. Usually, today it means mammals because they're the biggest things. But if you go before the age of mammals, the only other big terrestrial animals are dinosaurs. There's the age of dinosaurs on land, then there's the age of mammals, and that's it. It's just us. And there's a lot of connections too between how mammals evolved and how dinosaurs evolved, and we filled all the same niches and everything.
Yep.
So it's really fascinating to look at them, and the same kind of people, I think, that are interested in like polar bears and tigers and whales and dolphins and all that. There are dinosaurs that are similar to most of these animals. In most cases, in my opinion, at least, most of the dinosaurs are a lot cooler than some of the mammals are, because they're just like another
Biased.
but they're more extreme, right? Because if you like crazy hyper predators, what could be more impressive than a T-Rex? Something that can crunch through bone and has a skull that's 5 feet long and just massive. The most hyper predator you can ever imagine. If you like big herbivores like an elephant, a sauropod is just like 10 elephants.
Yeah.
So it's all like, if you have a favorite animal, then there's a dinosaur that's that thing you like, but even more of it.
There's also so much we don't yet know about dinosaurs, and so it's just fun to think about and hypothesize what weird behaviors, especially if you look at some of the crazy things that birds do. And you can see in the way that they walk, or even just looking at like their feet and stuff, like you can see the dinosaur in them. And then if you just extrapolate like a crow, how crows hold grudges, like could non-avian dinosaurs have held grudges? Maybe.
And then scale a crow up 1,000x or 10,000x in size.
Yeah.
And it gives you a different kind of fear that
Yes.
it's a lot.
They don't need to roar to
Absolutely.
be terrifying.
Yeah.
The sort of biggest show of paleo stuff that we haven't really gotten the chance to see, and we're probably realistically not going to get the chance to include it in the film, is the SVP meetings. And you guys have been to them over the last couple of years, sort of a press and getting to go through the who's who of all that. So can you describe like what that experience is like?
Yeah. Going to SVP is intense, but really good. There are so many meetings. Like everybody is speaking in, was it 15-minute increments, which Garrett loves
Yeah.
because it's an amazing summary. Maybe you want to talk a bit more about that.
Sure. So with their 15-minute format, basically you get the world expert on this niche topic. Whatever topic you're interested in, there's somebody who's a world expert in it giving you a 15-minute summary of basically their life's work. So you absorb so much information just in this weekend.
Throughout the day, you have all of the talks, which we usually have to split up because there's so many topics and we don't want to miss anything, especially the dinosaur related. And then there are activities usually during lunchtime and also in the evenings. Usually the first night you go to some kind of museum and it's like a cocktail hour and it's a meet and greet kind of thing. And so the last night is an awards banquet. Everybody dresses up very nice. And then there's a whole bunch of awards given out and you see who won different grants and things like that, and spotlight on certain researchers from the week. And then it turns into a dance and everybody just has a really great time and let loose.
Yeah. The dance party is definitely fun.
Yeah, there's always somebody who comes out in an inflatable T-Rex costume and just gets in the middle of the dance floor.
But really, the two things that everybody loves about SVP are, one, getting to see all these dinosaur enthusiasts and dinosaur experts that you don't usually get to see because we're all spread out all over the world. And so we all come together once a year to this great conference. And then the other thing is the learning. People that have been retired for years and years will go because they want to see their friends, but also because they want to keep on top of it because it's awesome.
Oh,
you want to learn everything that's going on.
You learn so much. There's also poster sessions every evening where it's always a different group of posters and people who have been working on different studies throughout the year. And yeah, it's like I said, it's the learning, but it is also very much about the friendships. And we go in as press, but we've been doing it for a long enough time now that I'd say we've made some very good friends through SVP, and we get to see them at these conferences because, like I said, they're coming from all over the world, so it's hard to see them otherwise.
Yeah, and you mentioned the posters. That's another piece to it, is a lot of undergrad students will present a poster at SVP as kind of either the final thing that they're doing as their undergrad, or for graduate students, sometimes it's just something they regularly do to update on their research. And it's a great way to get instant feedback because another researcher who's doing the same topic will walk by your poster and say, oh, I have that skull that's related to your poster. And so you just see all this information. It's great.
Well, the last thing I'll say is you get some celebrity spottings, too. Celebrities in the paleontology world. There was, I think the second year that we went, Bob Bacher was giving a talk, but it was an 8 a.m. talk on Saturday. And so that's after 4 days of everything. And usually people are pretty tired, not necessarily able to get up at 8 a.m. for a talk, but his talk was packed.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to miss it.
All right. Well, we're going to have to get out to one of those sooner or later.
Yeah, once they, become a thing again.
Yeah. They are doing it virtually this year, right?
Yeah, I've been getting a bunch of emails. They're doing something.
Last I heard, they're still planning it.
Well, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
we'll have to find a little piece of that to fit into our project.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll figure
Nice.
that. There's a good 35 seconds in there.